Hey everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama, welcome to our podcast.
Today we're covering the Adventures of Superman series from DC Comics.
Faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to leap tall buildings at a single bound, the Daily Planet's mild-mannered reporter, Clark Kent, is really the greatest superhero of them all, who fights a never-ending battle for truth, justice, and the American way in this 1952-58 series.
Yes, and before we get started, be sure to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get updates on podcasts and World of Paws videos.
We actually began watching this series years ago, and of course, we've never seen the entire series because the retro channels only buy a certain number of episodes, and you end up watching those over and over again. I really would love to see this series from the beginning to the end.
Right.
However, I don't know if that's ever going to happen. But, again, we began watching this about 3 years ago, and this series starred George Reeves, who was a really huge actor from what our Nana told us once back at that time. Mm-hmm. And he was the first example of a live-action superhero for television before Batman 66.
Right.
Actually, that's not true. There was another Batman show that we actually have the DVDs to.
Right,
it took
called
place
Batman
in
and
the
Robin.
1940s.
Yeah, called Batman and Robin.
Right, so I would say he's the second example of a live-action hero. And the show, from what we understand, was really popular. And we can see why. It was wholesome. It was safe for the family to watch. You know, it was PGG.
Right.
And it was really fun. And you liked the characters. And then you also had, at that time, a strong female character in Lois Lane. Mm-hmm. She wasn't the help Penelope Pit Stop woman. She was strong, and she knew Superman would be there, but she didn't depend on Superman. I would say Jimmy Olsen depended more on Superman than Lois Lane did.
Yeah, Superman's pal.
But this was a great show.
Yeah, and it's really fun when you see shows like this on the Retro Channel, or if you have them on DVD as well, because you see the beginnings of superhero craze and the series and origins before the animated series, before the blockbuster movies, before the big budget comic books and conventions and stuff. You had these, which was one of the most fun times to watch your favorite hero in action as he fought for truth, justice, and the American way.
Now, we do want to give some recognition to the actors because we weren't familiar with them before this show, and for those of you that love this show and possibly watched it, either as you were growing up or as we did in syndication, we have, again, George Reeves as Clark Kent, John Hamilton as Perry White, Noel Neal as Lois Lane,
Bill Kennedy is the announcer,
Jack Larson as Jimmy Olsen, and Robert Shane as Inspector Henderson. And there were other actors and actresses who appeared from time to time in different episodes. But this was the main cast. And from what we were reading, this show was treated like a 25-minute movie, a mini-movie. Every episode was filmed by a producer who was actually a producer of B Films. And he treated every single episode like it was a 25-minute movie. And you can tell when you're watching it, it is like watching a movie.
Right.
And so it was a wonderful way to make a series stand out the way that he did by filming them this way.
Right.
Because we've seen many superhero shows since, and none of them quite have the presence that this one has. They're very different. So that was a brilliant move, and it has made it stand out for decades, where it's still, again, fun to watch and still enjoyable. And the way it was done, it didn't end up being, what's the word I want to use? It didn't end up being where you would see it and it seems dated or it seems hokey. You never feel that way watching this series. It's just fun and you're loving it.
Right, like with the Batman 66.
Absolutely. And you forget that the cast has gone on. It's just that great and you're just enjoying it that much.
Right. And I know some people probably compare it to stuff made now, or like I said, the Batman 66 series, or the Wonder Woman 70s series. And I think, you shouldn't do that, because each series was made in a different decade. And each series had its own different hero. And each series had a personality was different. Superman was very heroic and brave, had action. Batman had action but was fun and cheesy and goofy and hilarious to watch. Wonder Woman had the espionage and the justice part of it. So all of them had their own tune and way of being a show. And that is why all of them stand out in their own way. And with Superman, usually the people that get to play Superman, whether live action or as the voice, always looks like, kind of like with the Captain America, like Chris Evans' Captain America. Whoever they get playing Superman always looks like, they could be Superman. Yes. They bring out the heroism of the character. And for a lot of people, even for decades now, George Reeves is considered one of the best Supermen ever.
I've always told you that the actors who they've gotten to play him, George Reeves, Christopher Reeve, Ray Palmer.
Brandon Routh, right?
Brandon Routh, thank you. And the last one, who we hope returns back, Henry Cavill, right? They all have this essence of humbleness, and they're sort of, I don't want to say innocence. There's something there that makes you think that, gosh, they are this unassuming and humble and kind, and just have this presence that it's believable. And you're right, George Reeves was the first to bring that, because when you watch him, he just has this, I'm just the guy next door appeal. And he just seems like there's nothing outstanding in terms of showboating or anything. He's just a really nice guy, especially when he's Clark Kent.
Right.
And you see in his eyes, as a great actor, you can see the intelligence behind the eyes when he's Clark Kent. And when he's saying different lines or he's interacting with Lois or Perry. And then when he changes to Superman, then it's a totally different humbleness and presence that he takes on. And that look that's in his eyes as Clark Kent is not in his eyes as Superman.
Right.
It's just brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant acting.
Right.
Absolutely brilliant. And you love Superman because of it.
Right. And there's always been the joke that people can't figure out that Clark Kent is Superman just with a pair of glasses. But with what you just described, maybe that could be another reason why they won't do it, because maybe they're keeping the essence of this show where he seems so different as both people that they wouldn't suspect they were the same person. So maybe that's why it's not just the glasses being like a Team Rocket level disguise, and then the suit and him being, as you said, humble in two different ways. Perhaps the demeanor and everything, both still, you can like them separately or together, and that's what brings out the best of both sides of the character.
Agreed. Now, he also became the planchette for future Superman, the ones we mentioned, Reeves and Ruth and Cavill. And each one embraced the role in their own way. Personally, I liked all three of them. My favorite, I would have to say, is Christopher Reeves. I absolutely loved Brandon Routh. I thought he did a fantastic job. Unfortunately, the movie didn't make it, but I loved it, and I thought he was great. And I loved Henry Cavill, and I hope they bring him back to the role. But he was the one that they based their performances on, and the appearance. How their hair is styled and the wigs they put on and different things. He is the, I won't say the planchette now. I think that's a great word, but I also say he is the,
not the pedestal, but he's like the icon they try to emulate when bringing out the character.
Yeah, and he left a great legacy for them. And you can see the respect that's being done to it each time someone performs the role. So it's going to be interesting to see whom they get to do Superman in the next theatrical movie, or if Henry Cavill returns.
Right.
From what I understood, George Reeves was also a movie actor, a movie star is what they called him back then. He was a movie star. And his life was very much in the press. And our Nana told him about, unfortunately, how he was murdered. And to this day, they're still not sure who did it, whom they suspect. It was said it was a suicide, but it was a murder. And so, watching this show, enjoying the legacy he's left, and seeing that, you know, him as a person come through in the role, it's a little bittersweet knowing that's how his life ended, but we can be truly, truly grateful for this thematic time capsule that he's left us, that we can go to anytime it's on, as you said, retro TV, on a retro channel, or on a DVD, and we can appreciate what he left for the world.
Right.
So that's the bittersweet part, but I'm really grateful for the Adventures of Superman.
Yeah.
Because it gets to add to our superhero viewing pleasure.
Yes, absolutely. So be sure to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get updates on podcasts and future Paws videos.
And Eureka! You should know who said that. If you watch this series, either when it originally aired or like we do in syndication, please let us know what you think in the comments below. And Rascal, don't call me Chief. Let us know what your favorite parts are. And as we were discussing, who's your favorite Superman of all time in the theatrical movies? And Great Caesar's Ghost is come to the end of the podcast.
Yes. So, thank you so much for watching.
It's a job for Superman.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got to find him.
Yes. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's Superman. I'm Rascal Entertainment.
And I'm Mama Entertainment.
Have a toontastic day.
Peace.
And reporters sitting, flashing lights, trying to walk around, man. Who the hell are you? What you wanna do? Well, man, it's on you. Man, it's on you. Met her in my dreams. She was my queen. A castle in the mountaintops, rivers and streams. Plucking sunlight from the sky in my pocket. Give it to you later on.